Moving into our next story of the day. If you haven't already, support us by hitting that like and subscribe button. We're doing a campaign here, folks, so leave us a nice comment down below. Does yeoman's work in supporting us and getting our videos out there to new viewers? Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. Well, we got Newsom here pushing reparations. We have talked about this, so this story isn't new, but what is new is the task force kicks around giving $223,000 to Black Californians. Now, this is just California. This doesn't talk about the rest of the United States. And it's just so crazy to me that this is still going on. And they, at no point in this article, discuss how they actually came to that number. But it says here, a reparations task force created by Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is kicking around some large sums of money here, up to $223,000 to give each qualifying Black American residing in California. Newsom created the 9-person task force, which we did talk about a year ago. This took place in 2020 as a social justice measure to promote equity. Equity just means equality, folks, to them, okay? They kind of interchangeably use them. But this task force did start in 2020. They've done a couple iterations of it, and we have covered it kind of as we go, which is why we're giving you the most up-to-date information on what's going on with it. As our country reckons with our painful legacy of racial injustice, California again is poised to lead the way towards a more equitable and inclusive future for all. He's not wrong in leading the way here, because a lot of blue states and Democratic states really look to California for what works and doesn't work. And don't get me wrong, a lot of stuff they push through just doesn't work, which is nuts because they still absorb it in other states. But this is one thing that could lead the way in other states actually doing this themselves. There have been small pockets of localities that have released reparations, which we covered here on the Ball Brad Show, but it's never been like at a state level or a federal level. It's been tried, right? During the Reconstruction, the Republicans wanted to do it and then get pushed through. Don't get me wrong, it's been tried in the past, but I'm talking on a federal level, kind of like modern days, never really happened. The task force maintains that a legacy of housing discrimination should qualify some Black Americans in the state to a total compensation of $569 billion. That's not million, that's billion. Or about $223,000 per person. So you can have multiple Black people in the household that were supposedly feeling the effects of slavery or whatever took place in the past. And so they all get $223,000. It's crazy. I'm not for reparations, by the way, folks, whatsoever. Before there was a time and place in history that was for. It's long gone. Long gone. Sorry. Housing discrimination was just one of these areas the group is looking into, though meaning those totals could increase. So basically, they're trying to find any variable that they can, and they're going to throw it in the pot and just increase that value all the way up. The effects of mass incarceration, unjust property seizures, devaluation of Black businesses, and healthcare are other 4 areas being examined according to the New York Times. My question is that, are we just going to lump this all into one pot, and then from that one pot, are we going to distribute it? Meaning that there could be Blacks that did suffer from maybe devaluation of Black businesses that wouldn't be worth the $223,000 that's being spoken of here, whereas maybe the property seizures would. So are we equating them as being similar to where it doesn't matter who you are, whether you went through property seizures or that you were having the effects of mass incarceration, whatever that means, and devaluation of Black businesses as all equal level, that they were all equally unjust? I find that hard to believe. And now you're seeing the problem when you let the government kind of run these things, and these woke leftists running the show, these task forces, they just come up with a number here. No, at no point did they actually say how they get to it. They don't show like the inflation rates or the individualized decision making of that family that were having the repercussions of what took place in the past and what did they do to change it. No, that conversation isn't there. You just give people money and it'll figure itself out, which is totally false, by the way. In personal finance world, just because you give people money does not mean their personal behavior will change in terms of their personal finance. Actually, more often than not, it doesn't. And we talked about most recently with the student loan debt forgiveness program, where the poll was that upwards of like 76% of people that would have their debt relieved from the federal government would go spend it on vacations, gaming consoles, and a litany of other things. Basically, luxury items at the end of the day is what they would go spend it on. So people don't change their personal finance, their spending behavior just because they receive money. Meaning that if you were struggling with debt before, just because you get $223,000 doesn't mean you're going to stop struggling with debt. 8 of 10 Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and that flows through whether you're making 6 figures or not. It doesn't matter if you're considered rich or not, you're still living paycheck to paycheck. The task force has broadened eligibility to any descendant of an enslaved African American or a free Black person living in the United States prior to the end of the 19th century. There are currently about 2.5 million Black Americans living in the Golden State. Notably, the Biden administration has supported the examination of reparations for Black Americans, meaning this is trickling to the federal level as well. The White House press secretary, Jean-Pierre, comments came as she fielded questions about whether the administration would provide reparations to families of victims of the 1921 Tulsa race massacre. Meaning, hey, this took place, let's add that in there too. Anybody else got something they want to add in that happened horrifically to black people? Sure, we'll take that too. Oh, you got something back there? It's like a buffet. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that doesn't really meet it. But you know what? Hey, we'll throw that in there too. Why not? Because we don't get pushback. This valuation go up a lot. The president believes that what these survivors have endured is tragic and devastating. I agree. What took place in the past is terrible. Racism, Jim Crow, segregation, slavery. I mean, you talk about it, it is terrible. But the injustices of the past don't need to be paid for by those today that didn't commit those injustices. That is wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't enslave anybody. I got my own damn problems. And I'm white. Okay? For all those people go, well, you got white privilege. Where is it? I'm waiting to see it. Where's the white privilege? You gotta love this. There's this bit by Theo Vaughn when he's in the slums. He's in poverty, and he's with all his black friends. And his black friend goes, "Man, you're stealing all this stuff from us. You're taking all this stuff." He's like, "Bro, I'm living with you. If I'm taking all your stuff, where is it?" He's like, "Why would I? How am I benefiting from this?" So there's a lot of comedy bits on it, but it's a joke. It's a way where people can just victimize themselves, and blacks were victims in the past. I don't think they're victims today. It doesn't mean there's not racism. There is 100% racists out there, and they're evil, and they're disgusting, and they're wrong. But for you to just sit there and expect, well, I need a handout today, when it's been from here, that seems like they're going from 1950 to 1960, roughly, in some areas, in terms of this task force and what they're kind of zoning in on. I don't think that you should get reparations for that. If you haven't forked your family tree and after one generation, you're doing something financially wrong. You do not need to make six figures to be a millionaire. Vast majority of millionaires that were surveyed, out of 10,000 millionaires, the vast majority of them didn't even have a household income over $100,000. Household income, meaning two people. Meaning you have a person making $40,000, a person making $60,000. You can have a person make $30,000, $30,000. There's been people out there that makes less than $20,000 a year that have made it to millionaire status. So this whole thing of like, oh, we're hurting because of what happened in the past, oh, all these things. No, you just made wrong financial decisions, and you don't want to make the necessary changes in your current life now by maybe having you work, your husband work, having your kids work, all living under one household, maybe moving out of state, not living in the state of California, to increase your wealth that way. And that way, at least, yes, you got to make the sacrifices for this generation, but the future generation won't have to make the same sacrifices because they'll be well off. But people don't want to do that. They'd rather bitch and complain about it and ask for a government handout. So as I've said, this task force here wants $223,000 for each person. And this discrimination practices specifically for housing was between 1933 and 1977. This is what Newsom wants. And there's some misleading stuff here, folks. Nationwide, black households have a median wealth of $24,100, which pales in comparison to white households, where the median wealth is $188,200. Now, these are both central measures, meaning the mean and median. The problem is that when you get into the median wealth and you're dealing with that middle number, is that on basic statistics, when you're looking at median, you're putting these numbers in ascending order. And it kind of doesn't really give a great view or holistic view on really what's taking place. Because this is nationwide, you have a skew and a range of different areas here that throw this number off. So take it as a grain of salt. Very well could be a very, very accurate number because, again, we do use this as a central tendency is what it's called, meaning a measure of middle. But, there's a gap there. So rather than going, well, it's automatically racism, why don't we ask, well, what's going on with black households compared to white households? What's going on with certain black households because certain black households do outpace white households? What's going on with the Asian community? How do they do in comparison? About the Hispanic community? What are the different Hispanic communities of where they're at, maybe around the globe that immigrated here? How are they doing? The same with the blacks, the same with the whites, the same with the Asians. Why don't we do that? But they lump it all in here, folks, to push a narrative upon all of you and upon the American people, and it's wrong. The government often offered black homeowners less money than what they paid to purchase their houses and force them out. I do agree that did happen. In addition to housing discrimination, the panel has targeted 4 other areas to study, again, mass incarceration, unjust property seizures, devaluation of black businesses, and healthcare. So there's going to be more tacked on later, folks. The Reparation Task Force will release a report with the final dollar amounts next year. I can't wait to break this one and obliterate it all. However, the 9 members who have been conducting interviews and compiling data for months can only make recommendations to the state. The California legislature must decide what to do with those recommendations and whether to throw political support and funding behind distributing reparations to descendants of blacks enslaved residents. So if the state does this right, the state's going to give them reparations. Does that disqualify them from federal reparations when that's released as well, or do they get those on top of that? So now you're getting double the points. You're getting double the money for something that took place in the past. That was horrific. I can't be any more clear than this. God, whenever you have a conversation about this stuff, you get these woke leftists, these progressives, and some of the Democrats go, well, you can't even talk about it. What do you say, man? You're crazy. You didn't feel it. You're a white guy. You didn't go through slavery. You didn't work on a plantation. You weren't segregated. You weren't doing all these things. No, I wasn't. But I'm struggling just as much as the next guy is. So what the hell? You can't have an opinion on this stuff? You can't look at it and be like, man, this is a little weird. You can't ask questions of how you got to this valuation. You can't ask them questions of how you're actually going to do this. Why everybody gets the same paycheck, even though not everybody went through the same damn thing that was black. It's unbelievable. It's just by the dent of your skin and the color of your skin, the way that you were born, somehow you get the same dollar amount. I mean, if somebody talks about diversity here on the progressive left and equality, why are you treating everybody as equal when somebody that was dealing with mass incarceration versus property seizures and black businesses being shut down or whatever it may be, why are you treating them all as equal when we know for a fact that they weren't all equal? So why are they all getting the same dollar amount? But we can't talk about that, folks, because it's racist, or you're not understanding, or you're wrong, you're bigoted, you're harmful, you're hateful, whatever it may be. It's ridiculous. You had an opportunity to pass reparations in the past. Some form of reparations did make it way through, where people got land and other avenues. There was states and localities that did do it. I shouldn't say really use states, more localities on a small level that give reparations to local community members. This stuff has been passed through. That time is come and gone. You got to work and make changes in your life and not rely on the government, not rely on the state, not rely on the American people to pay out their hard-earned money that they're struggling with as well, to pay their own bills. 8 out of 10 Americans, 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And now we got to deal with this crap of having stuff released to everybody else because something happened in the past, even though they're not the ones that are necessarily going through it themselves, necessarily. Some of them are. But even that, look, there's an opportunity for you to acquire wealth. You're making some weird decisions in your life. And if you want to look at property value or whatever it may be, you know, you could still sit there in America and recover from this stuff. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but there's a lot of people out there that want to help you and support you, regardless of your skin color. There's a lot of people that want to help and support you. If you're one of those people that had to go through housing discrimination or property seizures, devaluation of black businesses, and incarceration, email me and I'll see if I could do something here on the Bald Brad channel and help and support you. Rather than asking for a government handout, why don't we ask our neighbor Americans for help? Why don't we ask our local church members? Why don't we ask our community, our neighbor, to help us out? Maybe we can start a GoFundMe and we could work for those people that want to donate rather than forcing taxpayer dollars in the hands of other people. Or, hey, I've always said there's always that do you want to contribute $3 to the presidential election on the tax form? Why don't we have that checkbox of reparations then? If Americans want to contribute, then have selected Americans pay $3, $10, have a list on there on their tax form that says, hey, of this, tack on another $10 and give it to the federal government, the Department of Treasury, and you can disperse that in the way you like. How about that then? You know, there's ways of doing this, but you just throwing a dollar amount and go, oh, yeah, everybody's equal. It's just unbelievable to me. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Am I crazy here? Am I speaking out of hand? Am I just nutso like Kanye West? Yay. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much, folks. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Bald Brad Show. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our future content.